everybody, and welcome to Real Shame, a show where me and he talk about our list of movie blind spots or our list of shame, aka also known as list of shame. My name's Andy.
And I'm Adam.
And on Monday's episode, we tackled a movie that I hadn't seen. Actually, neither one of us had ever seen, but it's my week of movies that I haven't seen, called The Year of Living Dangerously, starring Mel Gibson and Sigourney Weaver and Linda Hunt. Adam decided to pair that with a similar movie with journalists in a crazy, politically unrestful country, and he could tell us all about what movie we're going to talk about today.
All right. 3 journalists in a romantic triangle are involved in political intrigue during the last days of the corrupt Somoza regime in Nicaragua. I can never say that name right. Nicaragua. Before it falls to a popular revolution in 1978 in Under Fire.
You got your cover, I got a feature. Package of class struggle, 3 little words. Nifty, huh?
Nifty, I say. I'm Russell Price.
I'm sorry, this is Ella Cruz. She works at the hotel, also as a translator.
My pleasure.
Sus muchachos tienen un tiroteo aquí, eh? Problemas entre las polis and the government?
Problemas. Aquí esto se llama una guerra, señor. Comenzó en 1930, antes de que usted naciera.
Excuse me, my Spanish is not up to shape. What did he say?
He said he considers it an honor to be able to photograph our war.
Russell, he's got a real way with words, hasn't he?
I can tell.
You're a hell of a translator.
Not Courage Under Fire.
Not Courage Under Fire, just Under Fire. Under Fire came out in 1983. It is written by Ron Sheldon, Clay Froman, and directed by Roger Spottiswoode. Roger Spottiswoode has directed movies like Turner and Hooch. Can't say anything today.
The classic Turner and Hooch.
Classic. Air America and Tomorrow Never Dies. Classic movies. Sheldon wrote White Men Can't Jump, Bill Duran, Tin Cup, Blue Chips, and Bad Boys 2. He seems to write a lot of, sports movies.
Yeah, and awesome sports movies at that.
And then Froman did some movies I've never heard of. Checkered Flag.
Abe Froman?
It might be
the Sausage King of Chicago?
Yeah.
Sorry. You said Froman. I was like, Ferris Bueller.
Yep.
Sorry.
It was what's his face as Clayton Froman who wrote this movie. Checkered Flag, Defiance, and The Delinquents. Any of those ring a bell to you? No, me either. Under Fire stars Nick Nolte as Russell Price, Joanna Cassidy as Claire, Gene Hackman as Alex Grazer, Ed Harris as Oates, John Luke. Oh man, this is true.
So I'm going to take
Jean-Luc
a stab
Trintignant.
I think it's Trintignant.
Trintignant as Jazzy. Jean-Luc Trintignant as Jazzy. There you guys go. That's what you pay for. And Richard Masur as Hub Kittle.
What a name.
He looks like a CIA agent. And I think great casting for that. It's a movie that I've never seen. Also a movie you've never seen.
That's right.
So since it's your week, I'm going to toss it over to you. You said you've heard of Under Fire before. Did you know anything about it? And what'd you think about Under Fire after watching it?
So there's kind of like, because I was pretty young whenever this movie came out, but I remember a lot of these movies that came out like in the early to mid 80s that I would see the posters of, like at the video store and stuff like that. And because I was a kid, I didn't rent them or whatever. I don't think I would have understood them anyway because I was a pretty dumb kid and also a pretty dumb adult. But I didn't rent that. I wasn't interested in that kind of stuff, right? I was interested in like Krull or Yor, the Hunter from the Future, or Star Wars or whatever. But I would see these posters all the time. So like posters for Under Fire, Salvador with James Woods is another one.
It's another one of this ilk.
Yeah, this kind of ilk. And then like Gorky Park. Which I don't think has anything to do with this movie or is similar to this movie, but I would see these and I would think of them as like that's the kind of movies that like my parents would watch, right? The adults would watch. What?
I just read your notes.
Oh, so we'll have to get to that whenever we start talking about the film. But Under Fire is just another one of those that I would see the poster of like as I was a kid, and I've seen it all these years, but I never really knew what it was about. I mean, and I did know that it had Nick Nolte and Gene Hackman in it, but I don't think I knew, and like Ed Harris or Joanna Cassidy for that matter was in it. So that was a surprise to me. And I mean, kind of like You're Living Dangerously. I mean, I knew that it was like some kind of country somewhere, right? Some foreign country that they were in that shit was going down and they
Like
were reporting on it, right?
95% of Americans.
Yeah. It was very vague,
Yeah.
kind of details of it. Roger Spottiswoode. I mean, the movies that you mentioned, I think I've seen all those: Turner and Hooch, Air America, and Tomorrow Never Dies. But he's not a director that I can watch a film and go, "Oh, it's Roger Spottiswoode,"
Yeah,
right?
I
I mean,
agree.
it's just kind of a journeyman director, whatever you want to call it. So anyway, going into this film, I didn't really have expectations one way or the other.
Yeah.
You know, I watched it, you know, probably a few days after I watched The Year of Living Dangerously, which I was unfavorable on. So Under Fire, you know, wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it. Would I feel the same way about Year of Living Dangerously? And the answer is no. I really liked Under Fire.
Yeah.
I thought Under Fire is really good. And what I mentioned on Monday, The Year of Living Dangerously, to me, it was kind of, we're kind of going to make a political film about Sukarno and his, rule. And we're kind of going to make a film about Mel Gibson falling in love with Sigourney Weaver. Maybe stick them together and see if they... And it just didn't really come together for me. It was just, everything seemed kind of half-baked almost. I don't feel this way about Under Fire at all. I feel like Under Fire, it all works well. And that's why on Monday... I kept saying you can do those things together because I was thinking about Under Fire.
I've seen it.
Yes, you can. I didn't want to give it away, but you can do those things together. You can make a film where there's plenty of stuff going on politically. There's plenty of political unrest and war and people being murdered and things like that. Soldiers running around, and you can have these journalists falling in love and sleeping together, whatever, and all that stuff. And it still all fits together. And I thought that it did really nicely in this film. I thought all the performances. I mean, I felt this way about Year of Living Dangerously too. The performances were all good, but Under Fire, I mean, Nick Nolte's great, Joanna Cassidy's great, Gene Hackman, always great. I love seeing Ed Harris as kind of this soldier of fortune who just shows up wherever. He's just fighting for whoever needs him and for whoever's that money, paying, I guess, right? Whoever's paying, he's a soldier of fortune, mercenary kind of guy. And then the jazzy character, the Jean-Louis Trintignant, was
interesting.
I really liked his character. He's like, oh, okay, I'm a spy. Now, anyway, can we talk about this?
Continue on.
Just this very, very cool character. But no, this movie completely held my interest the entire time. I was never bored. I think it's 2 hours or so. I was never bored with it. I was so on board with what was going on in this film. I really like, I mean, and this isn't, the fault of Year of Living Dangerously because it's not part of the story, but I like how in Under Fire, Nick Nolte and Joanna Cassidy get right in the thick of things.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of action in this film where they're right there.
Like, there's a part where the rebels are like on the roof, and then people are firing, and he's like crouched down near them. I'm like, how are you not getting shot at? Obviously he has like a bandana and like has the flags, but I'm like, how are these people are just not taking pot shots at you? They are in the thick of it. It is crazy how close to the action they are in this movie.
Yeah. But there was kind of a love triangle in this film. I mean, there's kind of a love triangle in Year of Living Dangerously because, like, Billy's in love with Sigourney Weaver. The Linda Hunt's character's in love with Sigourney Weaver and whatnot. But in this movie, I mean, it's really a love triangle. They've all been involved with each other. Well, Nick Nolte and Gene Hackman, I guess, haven't been involved. But Gene Hackman and Nick Nolte have both been. Well, they may have. But they've both been involved with Joanna Cassidy. But it all just worked for me. I was surprised. At the end, and I saw that it was like written or co-written by Ron Shelton. Because I was like, Ron Shelton, because I know him from White Men Can't Jump and Bull Durham and all the sports movies. So I was like, wow, that's crazy.
They do have a baseball thing in there with the guy wanting that ball to get.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
Maybe that was Rob Shelton's little.
I think it was
little salt dab or whatever.
I think it was. Well, did you read that he actually was like a minor league baseball player?
Was
Ron Shelton.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah,
no.
So he was like a minor league baseball player, and then he became a writer and director.
Gotcha.
And so it makes sense that he's really into sports. So I think that's cool. But no, I was all about Under Fire. I think this is a really, really, really good film. I was shocked at how much I enjoyed this film.
All right.
What about you? Did you have the same level of enthusiasm as I have for Under Fire?
I had an interesting journey with Under Fire. So I kind of had the opposite of you did because I, enjoyed The Year of Living Dangerously, and I was like, okay, cool. Like this week's starting out good, because I feel like I had a bad run. I had a run of movies I didn't like the last month. So I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, we're getting the momentum going. Like I had some issues with Year of Living Dangerously. We're gonna go into it. We're gonna, it's gonna be a good month. I'm gonna enjoy the movies, and So I'm watching this movie, and it's just not quite working for me a little bit. And ultimately, what happened was, whenever they found out that Raphael is dead, this movie turns for me, and the movie becomes an awesome movie. So I don't like the first part of the movie very much. There are aspects of it I like. Like, I like getting that we see Nick Nolte in different wars and stuff like that. And I like that we get the setup. But for me, that setup is a little too long, and I don't need that much of setup. But for me, what gets really interesting is them finding Raphael's dead, them kind of getting propositioned to take a photo to basically build propaganda for...
Which is the note we were
Yeah,
laughing
yeah,
at.
yeah, we're laughing.
I put Weekend at Raphael's, thinking of Weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I thought it would be hilarious if they like tried to prop him up.
But
and,
they
like,
did. The guy like...
Well, but that's all they do
Yeah.
is to take a photo. But they actually try to Weekend at Bernie's in, Weekend at Raphael's in. Okay. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
No worries. No. So I think the movie would have been great if we would have got, Nick Nolte, in Africa doing that stuff, running into Ed Harris, then talking about when, hey, I'm going to go somewhere else, blah, blah, blah. Then him winding up in country. You have that first meeting where he's at the hotel. They meet the translator lady, meet Jen Hackman, blah, blah, blah. And then it kind of cuts into him trying to find Raphael, and going on that journey, right? So cut out all the stuff in between those parts. And because for me, it's really interesting, like, what will this guy do in this situation? Like, is he going to contribute to his propaganda or not? And all that kind of stuff. Like, that's super interesting. And then everything that happens afterwards with that is, I find, really interesting, with, them finding out more about Jazzy. And
and whose side is he on?
Yeah.
Who's he playing? It seems like he's playing everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then running into Ed Harris again and again and again, like, that's interesting.
Yeah. Hey, what are you doing here?
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, the stuff that happens to Gene Hackman and all that stuff. Like, for me, the last half of the movie is so interesting, and the first half is just not as captivating for me. So I wish that I could go back and just like edit out like 20 or 30 minutes from the first half of the movie and just maximize that stuff, because for me, it's more interesting in this kind of like Nick Nolte in this situation of what he's going to do, and then all the repercussions that happen because of that and everything like that. Like, I think it's more interesting. So I'm torn, because I really not a big fan of the first part of the movie. And I almost kind of was like, okay, maybe I should turn this off. I mean, obviously I wouldn't for the show, but I was just like, But once we got
you
to
just lie and say you watched it.
Yeah.
I'd talk about details, and you'd be like, that.
Yeah, that thing.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I get the names wrong. I start calling characters wrong names, like I have been.
I test you. I'm like, and then when the aliens landed, that's really crazy. You're like, I'm like, ah.
Yeah, exactly.
Ain't no aliens in this movie.
I meant illegal aliens.
Yeah.
No, maybe that's inappropriate. So for me, and then when we get to the part where Raphael's dead, he find out, like, he does like some really cool things where they're like in the town, and he's like, oh, I can tell he's dead, right? And just like, it's interesting stuff like that, and like how the body's preserved and all this stuff, and then people are having signs, and like all that's really interesting. So I kind of wanted more of that. So that's kind of where I fell on it. I really think like the latter half of this movie is really interesting and really captivating, and I just wish it was more like that throughout the whole movie.
Well, but the latter half being more interesting and captivating, did that ultimately make you like the film? Would you say, or no?
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm favorable towards it. It's not. I don't like it as much as Living Dangerously, but I do think it's good. Like I don't regret picking this movie and watching it and all that kind of stuff. I
thought that they went really well together.
Yeah. For a minute, I texted you. I was like, well, maybe we should try a different movie, just because like I wanted a movie that was. I liked You're Living Dangerously so much that I wanted another movie that would be on par with it, and not another movie that would just run it over, right? And I knew like The Killing Fields, which was another movie I was thinking about, is well reviewed and well regarded. So I was like, okay, this one could stand up to it. And I'm really happy that Under Fire is a movie that could stand up to it and was as interesting. So, and I'm glad I watched it. So I don't like it as much as You're Living Dangerously, but I do like the movie, and I do think it's interesting. And I would say if you're kind of having trouble with it in the beginning, like I am, stay on board, because the latter half is very, very interesting, very captivating in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the same problem. I thought all of it was interesting, but I can see what you're saying because it definitely does get very interesting
Yeah.
when they find out Raphael's dead and the dilemma that they face, like you said.
Yeah.
I mean, because their job is to document things with pictures and print. And yes, I mean, obviously in print, you're going to have some editorializing and some opinion there. But your pictures,
Yeah.
you know, you're kind of this distant observer, right? And it's like, should he get involved with these things? I also love that Gene Hackman, who's
comes
already
back
left, he comes back
to interview him.
Yeah, to interview him.
Yeah.
And so they have to like just
Yep.
basically give him the runaround and be like, oh, we can't find him. We can't
Yep.
find him. And then finally they just have to tell him.
Yeah.
And he gets pissed. You know,
Well-
he's like, what the hell? You're not supposed to get involved like
Exactly.
this. You're not supposed to get
Well,
involved.
That's awesome. And also it's coming to as he learns of the love triangle and that, you know, basically
Mm-hmm.
Nick Nolte and Claire are falling for each other and have maybe have had a relationship, you know, even though she's with him. So all of a sudden, like he comes back, you know, they're like, oh no, we have to hide this thing from him. Also, we have to hide our relationship from him and all that kind of stuff. And like that just makes the movie really interesting and really captivating, right? And I just wanted more of that.
Yeah.
But we get it. But I'm glad we get it. It's just if we got a little bit more, it would have been that much better, you know.
And the fact that and spoiler obviously, but the fact that Gene Hackman he's been offered this network news anchor position basically, so he's on top of the world. He comes back basically just to interview Raphael, to talk to Nick Nolte, and it leads to his death.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, as he's riding around with Nick Nolte, he's just like, yeah, you know, I mean, you could tell he's almost like carefree, and he goes down to talk to the soldiers and ask them where the hotel is or whatever, and they just murder him.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's crazy. It comes out of nowhere. You're like, oh my God. Like, and then Nick Nolte's on the run. It's very exciting. Yeah, this is a really good film.
So I will say I have two questions to ask you.
Yeah.
One is, do you think Nick Nolte's a good photographer? Because all the black still frames he takes, I'm kind of like, I don't know if that's a great photograph or not. Like, I don't know if the composition's really great or.
I don't know. I
Did
mean,
you-
I
did
would
that-
imagine. I didn't even think about that.
Okay.
I mean, you're running around getting shot at and stuff.
Yeah.
You're just shoot. You're just taking tons and tons of photos.
Okay.
Hopefully, one of those 50 photos will be good or whatever the case. may
I
be.
just know that. The other thing is this movie is included on American Film Institute's 2001 list of the 400 movies that have the most heart-pounding moments in it, or most heart-pounding American movies. I do think it's interesting what happens to Gene Hackman, but I don't find this movie heart-pounding at all.
I don't consider it heart pounding at all.
Yeah, okay. Because I was wondering if I was alone in that, because
No.
I like it and it's captivating and there's some very interesting things
Yeah.
here, but it's not a movie I would consider heart-pounding.
No, I mean, when I think heart pounding, I think suspenseful. I didn't
Yeah.
think this movie was suspenseful.
Yeah.
It's great, but I didn't think it was. I wasn't like on the edge of my seat.
Yeah.
I just was like, oh yeah, interesting. So
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I just want to ask. I think that's all I kind of have. I guess I have, yeah. So on my list, anything else you want to add about the movie?
So we mentioned Year of Living Dangerously doesn't have a North American Blu-ray release. This movie had a Blu-ray release a while back that was put out by a label called Twilight Time, which was a boutique Blu-ray label that put out 5 Blu-ray releases a month. They were all limited quantity, sometimes 1,000, sometimes 3,000, sometimes 5,000. That Twilight Time Blu-ray release went out of print, but Under Fire, you're in luck if you want to own Under Fire and you didn't get the Twilight Time Blu-ray release, and you don't feel like paying high prices on eBay for it. They released, whatever the studio is that released this film, released just a general Blu-ray release of it last
Nice.
February 2022. So it is readily available on Blu-ray. I don't think it's streaming anywhere. I didn't see it streaming.
No,
anywhere,
I checked for both movies. I couldn't find them
Yeah.
streaming.
But if you're a fan of Under Fire and you've always hankered to have a Blu-ray copy, they're available as of now. It is 90% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, 69% audience, but it did get 2 thumbs up from Siskel and Ebert. However, did not make either one of their top 10 lists from 1983. And Leonard Maltin, he liked this a little better than Year of Living Dangerously. He gives it 3.5 stars
Oh yeah,
out of 4.
nice.
Yeah.
So that was our thoughts on Under Fire. On these Wednesday episodes, we like to answer viewer questions. And we pulled one that is pertinent to the movie that we're talking about today. Or actually, Monday. And it is, what are our favorite Sigourney Weaver movies?
Yes.
So Sigourney Weaver, I think we're looking at it, she has like over 100 acting credits.
Yeah.
So she's been in a lot of movies, guys.
More than I thought was going to be there.
For sure. There's 2 movies that kind of immediately come to mind of hers that I have to choose between. I'm almost picking Darlings at this point. Picking Darlings, does that make sense? It's Sophie's choice a little bit. Maybe it's a better term. Anything you want to call out before we dig into the movies we like?
Well, have we only done the Ice Storm? Is that the only Sigourney Weaver movie that we've done on the show? Probably, right?
I believe that in the year of living.
So I am favorable towards Ice Storm. I know you're not.
No, wasn't a fan.
So I will call that out just for sheer virtue of the fact that we've done it on the show. Other than that, I wanted to mention, so this movie, Under Fire, has Gene Hackman, as we mentioned. I want to mention a movie that I liked, at least when it came out. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I thought it was fun. It's got Gene Hackman, Sigourney Weaver, and Jennifer Love Hewitt, called Heartbreakers. Did you ever see that? 2001.
And sounds familiar. I don't think I ever saw that.
It's like Sigourney Weaver and Jennifer Love Hewitt. I think her mother and daughter, but they're basically con women.
Okay.
And they seduce, or at least one of them, or maybe both of them, seduce men and kind of steal their money. And I thought it was fun, back in the day anyway. I'd have to revisit it to solidify that, but I thought it was pretty fun back in the day. The last thing I'll say before I pick mine is can't go wrong with Galaxy Quest, right?
That's right.
By Grapthar's Hammer, What's a Savings?
So going into that, there's the two movies I had to flip between were Alien, which is an amazing movie, like top 10 all-time great movie, right?
Yeah.
And Galaxy Quest.
Yeah.
And you got to give it. I feel like you got to give it to Alien, but I'm just gonna go ahead and say Galaxy Quest probably.
Okay.
Favorite Sigourney Weaver role.
Okay.
Alien is just in that pantheon, Mount Olympus kind of movie. So maybe we'll give it to the mere mortals and demigods and say Galaxy Quest.
Okay. Mine would be Alien.
Yeah.
It's
fuck.
I'll just echo what you said. I can't say any better than that. It's just a fantastic science fiction / horror film.
Yeah.
Ridley Scott has done some amazing films, but it's definitely one of his best.
Yep.
It just never gets old. Gets old.
Yeah.
So great.
And I think I've shared it on here before, and I've told you, I've seen Aliens. I've seen Alien 3. I saw Alien Resurrection all before I saw Alien, and I knew about Alien, and I watched Alien and in my adult life, and for the first time, and that movie worked.
Yeah.
And it worked so well. So the fact that a movie from, was it 79 or 78?
79.
Movie from 79 could still hold up and still be that good. And even knowing everything about it and all the stuff after it and still works. I think that speaks a lot for the movie. So, it is a all-timer movie for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I envy people that are watching Alien for the first time.
Yeah.
It's a great film.
All right. Well, that was our favorite Sigourney Weaver films. Now it's your turn. Let us know what your favorite Sigourney Weaver film is. There's a lot we didn't mention. Maybe it is Heartbreakers, like you said. Maybe it's something else. Maybe
Ghostbusters.
it's Ghostbusters. Yeah,
2.
I'm not the biggest Ghostbusters fan. I know that's probably sacrilege from the nerd corner, but it's not a movie.
I like Ghostbusters a lot. Ghostbusters 2.
It doesn't do a lot for me. Yeah.
Although I love the Bobby Brown song from Ghostbusters 2.
Your love is taking me high. That one?
No, it's On Our Own by Bobby Brown. Love that song.
So let us know what your favorite Sigourney. I lost track because I was singing. All right, let us know what your favorite Sigourney Weaver movie are. Leave it down below if you're watching on YouTube. Shoot us an email, realshame@gmail.com. We appreciate it. Please like, subscribe, share, do all that social media stuff. It does help spread the word, and it does really help us out. And we are really appreciative of those people that do that. And everyone that comments, we appreciate that too. Thank you for doing that. Stay tuned next week as we watch some movies from my list of shame. And we'll see you soon, guys. Have a good one. See you soon.